The European Union was once a grand promise. It was a solemn vow of peace on a continent scarred by war. It was a shared dream of prosperity for all its people. It was a vision of steady, reliable growth that would lift every nation. Today, however, that promise is under a brutal and unrelenting strain. The EU now looks weak and indecisive. The signs are everywhere. France has cycled through 4 prime ministers in a single year. Germany is battling steep industrial decline, factories emptying, output falling. Across the continent, the political ground is shifting. Populist parties are rising fast. National debts are mounting to levels once unimaginable. The euro, the symbol of unity, is under simmering pressure, and serious analysts question its long-term viability. This did not appear overnight. The problems have been growing for decades. Countless small mistakes and unaddressed structural flaws compounded over time. The divergence began after the great financial crisis of 2008. In the face of a global economic meltdown, the United States made a clear choice. China made a clear choice. They opted for big fiscal measures. They also used aggressive monetary stimulus. Both pumped trillions into growth. Europe, however, chose a different, more painful path. EU leaders, guided by fear of inflation, pushed austerity. They feared debt. Many northern governments doubled down on cuts. They cut spending, they raised taxes, even in deep recession. That decision choked off a fragile recovery and led to long stagnation. The numbers make it clear. Europe's share of the global economy has steadily declined. In 2000, the EU was about 20% of world GDP. By 2023, it had fallen to roughly 14%. The story of Europe's technological decline is a story of absence. Look across the global landscape of dominant tech companies. You'll find a glaring void where European names should be. The continent has failed to produce a single new technology giant in the last half-century. There is no European equivalent of Apple, Google, Amazon. Not a single company founded in Europe in the past 50 years has reached a $100 billion valuation. The most valuable European firms are old legacy companies, not digital innovators. This is a catastrophic failure of innovation and commercialization. Even when Europe creates promising ventures, it struggles to keep them. 1/3 of Europe's unicorns, startups valued over $1 billion, have relocated. They leave for deeper capital markets. They leave for more favorable regulatory environments. They leave for more dynamic ecosystems in the United States. Increasingly, they leave for Asia. Europe incubates ideas only to watch wealth created elsewhere. It's a slow, steady bleed of future assets. Compounding this is a self-inflicted crisis in the industrial heartland. Energy policy has dealt a savage blow to heavy industry. Germany's shutdown of its remaining nuclear plants after the 2022 gas crisis is a prime example. Europe is losing its most valuable resource, its people. A quiet but persistent exodus of skilled workers is underway. A brain drain is stripping the continent of talent and ambition. Highly educated professionals, scientists, entrepreneurs, engineers are leaving for better opportunities and higher salaries. United States, United Kingdom. They also take their new ideas, their future businesses, and their tax revenues. It is a net loss Europe struggles to recover from. This outflow runs alongside a demographic shift that's an even greater long-term threat. Europe is aging rapidly. The workforce is shrinking. Demographers are sounding the alarm. By 2040, Europe could be losing up to 2 million workers each year. Because retirements are outpacing young people entering the labor force, fewer workers must support more retirees, straining pensions and healthcare systems. The 20th century model relied on a growing population. The 21st century reality is the opposite. The social fabric is fraying. Economic hardship is pushing native-born Europeans to the brink. More than 100 million Europeans, nearly a quarter, are at risk of poverty or social exclusion. This is not abstract. Real families struggling to pay their bills. Young people unable to find meaningful work. Elderly citizens facing a precarious retirement. It is a burgeoning social crisis hiding in plain sight. This combination, brain drain, a shrinking workforce, and rising poverty, creates a vicious cycle. A less dynamic economy offers fewer opportunities, encouraging more skilled people to leave. A smaller workforce and a larger dependent population mean higher taxes are needed to fund social services, further reducing competitiveness. The result, an older, smaller, poorer, more divided continent. This is not a simple policy fix. It is a profound societal challenge that questions the long-term sustainability of the European social model itself. Well, that is the scale of the dilemma. Years of economic pain and social anxiety inevitably curdle into political anger, you know. Across Europe, that anger is fueling a powerful political reckoning. Support for populist parties has tripled since the 1990s. Far right, far left. Once dismissed as fringe movements, now major players in national parliaments. And the European Parliament itself. They thrive by offering simple answers, often simplistic answers to complex problems. They blame immigrants. They blame Brussels bureaucrats. They blame global elites. Their message is resonating with voters who feel left behind and ignored. The rise of the Alternative for Germany, AfD, is a textbook case. Its support surged by capitalizing on anger over green policies, government mandates for expensive heat pump installations, broader anxieties about immigration and cultural change. Similar stories are playing out in France, Italy, the Netherlands, and beyond. This political fragmentation makes governing incredibly difficult. It leads to unstable coalitions, legislative gridlock, a constant focus on short-term political survival rather than long-term strategic planning. The center ground that once provided stability is eroding before our eyes. Political turmoil is worsened by a steady drumbeat of corruption scandals. The Qatargate affair, MEPs accused of taking bribes from foreign governments. Headlines, investigations, fallout. It reinforced the view that Brussels is remote and unaccountable, that elites enrich themselves through opaque deals. This erosion of trust is toxic. When people think the system is rigged, they lose faith in politicians. They lose faith in the democratic process. They become more susceptible to authoritarian populists. Europe's most important external relationship is also under strain. For over 70 years, the United States was the guarantor of European security. The American defense umbrella let Europe spend less on its militaries and build welfare states. Now that guarantee is no longer certain. Washington's focus is shifting to Asia. European allies are told to pay more for their own defense. This leaves a vulnerable, divided Europe facing an increasingly aggressive Russia on its eastern flank, and a once steady partner looking less reliable. The euro was more than just a currency. It was the most ambitious step in the project of European integration. It was intended to bind the continent's economies together. It was intended to foster stability. It was intended to project European power globally. However, the architecture of the single currency was flawed from its inception. It was a political creation that ignored economic realities, a house built on sand. Rigorous academic research, including an Oxford academic analysis, identified 6 core structural problems baked in from day one. Here are the 6 structural flaws. These are not minor technical issues. They are fatal flaws threatening the monetary union's survival. First, lack of a central fiscal capacity. The Eurozone has a single central bank, but it has 19 separate national finance ministries and 19 separate national budgets. There is no powerful shared treasury to help a country in deep recession, like a single country with no federal government to transfer funds between states. Without fiscal union, shocks are amplified, not absorbed. Weaker economies face immense pressure. Second, the banking union is dangerously incomplete. The ECB supervises the largest banks, but bank failure handling and deposit insurance are still fragmented by country. So a bank's health remains tied to its home country's finances. That doom loop helped trigger the 2012 debt crisis. It was never fully severed. There is no common deposit insurance. Savers in weaker countries are vulnerable. Third, the ECB is not a full-fledged central bank like the US Federal Reserve. Its mandate focuses narrowly on price stability. It lacks flexible tools and the political backing to be a true lender of last resort for governments. Fourth, No formal, orderly mechanism exists to restructure sovereign debt. That forces effectively bankrupt countries into more debt via bailouts, kicking the can down the road instead of addressing insolvency. Fifth, the EU lacks effective enforcement for structural reforms. It can recommend reforms for Italy. It can recommend reforms for France, but it cannot force them. Sixth, crisis governance is weak, slow, and overly politicized. Decisions needing hours instead take weeks of haggling, and by then the crisis has spiraled out of control. The structural flaws of the euro are not theoretical. They have created a real-world monster, a mountain of unsustainable debt. The numbers are staggering. They tell a story of profound economic divergence. Look at France. Its total debt has soared to over 350% of GDP. Public debt, corporate debt, household debt. This is an immense burden and a brake on growth. In Germany, the situation is better, but total debt is still close to 200% of GDP. A single monetary policy and one ECB interest rate for both is a dangerous fiction. One-size-fits-all rates create winners and losers. Keeping rates low to help high-debt countries like Italy can fuel asset bubbles and inflation in stronger economies like Germany. Raising rates to fight inflation risks pushing indebted southern countries into deep recession, even a debt crisis. The single currency is driving economies further apart, acting like a straitjacket. In response, a quiet process is underway: the renationalization of credit. The single European financial market is breaking apart. Banks and lenders are retreating within national borders. Look at Spain, look at Italy. Nearly 100% of new corporate loans there are state-backed through government guarantees. Credit is being directed by national governments to prop up domestic firms. Free capital flow across borders is becoming a distant memory. This is accompanied by financial repression. Governments are forcing domestic financial institutions to buy their national bonds. Pension funds, insurance companies, banks, domestic savings are trapped to finance deficits. It's a hidden tax on savers and a sign of monetary disintegration. The euro may still be in pockets, but the single financial system is fracturing along old national lines. Faced with these deep structural problems, European leaders have shied away from the difficult and politically costly path of fundamental reform. Instead of fixing the euro's core flaws, a different agenda is emerging from Brussels. It is an agenda focused not on market-based solutions and economic dynamism, but on greater centralization and control. This plan involves building new systems designed to channel capital and regulate economic activity from the top down. Two major initiatives stand out as pillars of this new control agenda: Savings and Investment Union Digital Euro. First, the Savings and Investment Union is being publicly promoted as a way to help ordinary European savers get better returns, and to unlock private capital for investment. The reality, however, is more complex. A key part of the proposal involves automatically enrolling citizens' pension savings into large EU-aligned investment funds. These funds would be managed by a small number of giant asset managers. Example: large asset manager, BlackRock, or similar. This system effectively funnels the life savings of millions of Europeans into assets and projects deemed priorities by policymakers in Brussels: green transition initiatives and specific infrastructure projects. This approach carries significant risks. It shifts risk from governments onto the shoulders of individual retail investors, who may find their retirement funds locked into underperforming assets chosen for political rather than financial reasons. It also allows Brussels to direct the flow of capital without taking direct political responsibility for the investment outcomes. If the investments perform poorly, the losses are borne by individual savers, not the government. It is a way to achieve policy goals using private savings, bypassing democratic accountability and market discipline. It is a subtle but powerful mechanism for centralized capital allocation. Second, and even more profoundly, the European Central Bank is actively exploring the creation of a digital euro. This would be a central bank digital currency, a new form of programmable money issued directly by the ECB. On the surface, it is presented as a modernization of the payment system, but the implications for personal freedom and privacy are immense. A programmable currency could carry embedded rules. It could be designed with spending caps, expiration dates to force spending, negative interest rates that could be applied directly to your holdings. It could even be restricted for use only on certain government-approved goods or services. The Bank for International Settlements itself has warned that with a CBDC, a central bank would have absolute control over the currency's use. It could see every transaction and has the technological capacity to reduce balances or block payments in real time. This represents a monumental shift of power from individuals to the state, effectively ending financial privacy as we know it. The financial markets are not blind to these underlying realities. While policymakers project an image of calm and control, sophisticated investors know the euro may be living on borrowed time. The European Central Bank can expand its balance sheet, buying bonds to keep rates down. But it cannot create real economic growth or fix structural flaws. The entire setup feels increasingly like a monumental bluff, and markets are starting to price the chance that the bluff is called. This creates a new landscape of winners and losers. Winners align with state priorities: defense infrastructure, green firms, renewable energy producers, electric vehicle battery makers. These sectors will thrive because they're politically favored. Outside that system, refuges from currency debasement may do well. Gold Bitcoin capital will seek scarcity and sovereignty beyond programmable money and negative rates. Losers will be numerous. Passive index investors could be punished in low growth, high intervention Europe. Legacy banks face pressure from low profitability and tighter regulators. The biggest losers may be ordinary savers. Pensions and savings auto-enrolled into government-directed funds could see poor returns or capital erosion. In a world of financial repression and a potential digital euro, saving in the official currency can become a losing proposition. Europe now stands at a historic crossroads, facing a stark and unavoidable choice. The path of small adjustments and incremental changes has run its course. The problems are now too deep, the cracks too wide. One path is genuine radical reform. This is the difficult road. Complete the economic and monetary union with a real central fiscal capacity, a shared treasury to support struggling regions. Create a full banking union. Implement a common deposit insurance scheme. Empower the ECB as a true lender of last resort with full tools and flexibility. Establish a formal, legal, orderly process to restructure hopeless sovereign debts. Give the EU real enforcement powers to make member states implement reforms. Boost productivity. Boost innovation. Rethink energy policy. Rethink industrial policy so factories can compete and thrive. This path demands immense political courage. It requires surrendering some national sovereignty for a more resilient hold. It reaffirms the promise of a prosperous, unified Europe on a sounder foundation. The other path, the one Europe is on now, is managed ruin. Leaders avoid hard choices. Countries protect their own banks, their own industries, their own savers, through financial repression and the renationalization of credit. Central political control grows, not to spur dynamism, but to manage decline and suppress dissent. The savings and investment union becomes a tool. The digital euro becomes a tool. Innovation will flee the continent. The best and brightest will follow jobs and opportunities overseas. The stakes could not be higher. This decision will shape the continent for generations. Citizens will feel the cost: lower living standards, diminished opportunities, reduced freedoms. Investors face new, unpredictable risks. The global order will be reshaped as Europe fades into irrelevance, a warning, not a model. The moment of decision is now. Small policy steps will not suffice. The EU needs bold, systemic fixes to its currency and economic model. Choose reform over the easy slide into control. Fail, and decline hardens into collapse. The next decade will tell the tale.